Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the East Riding of Yorkshire series. Together with the unparished city of Hull, it forms the county of the same name. There's 172 parishes here. Which one are we in today? Welcome back to the East Riding of Yorkshire, folks, and welcome back to the outskirts of the city of Hull. I'm beginning this episode on a street called Tower View. It's a very appropriate name because from this very street you can see a tower. Let's turn the camera around and I'll show you the tower. There it is. Now, I wonder what that tower's all about. Well, I'm about to tell you as we make our way through this first part of the parish of Anlaby with Anlaby Common. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Hello again, Hull. It's been a while. Welcome back to the western side of the East Riding's only city as we take on the last of the three suburban parishes between Hull and the open countryside beyond. This is Anlaby with Anlaby Common, and yes, you do have to be careful when you're writing the word Anlaby. It's so easy to be misspelt. Just like its neighbours Willerby and Kirk Ella, Anlaby is a modern residential metropolis, and it stretches for at least a mile and a half from the boundary with Hull all the way to the A164 East of Swanland. Anlaby was recorded in the Domesday Book as Umlouebi. The name is thought to derive from Old Norse and means Anlaf's village. It remained small until suburban housing developments began in the 1930s, and by the 1950s, housing extended continuously along the roads to Willerby and Kirk Ella. There were also short-lived housing estates on the fringes of the village during World War II, named Lowfield Camp and Tranby Crofts. Urban housing expansion of Anlaby was practically complete by the 1970s, and now Anlaby can officially call itself one of Hull's biggest suburbs. The pattern of development has remained fundamentally unchanged to the present day. There are several churches here, shops and community buildings, including the massive Halton Price Leisure Centre, which was opened by a famous athlete. Shall we go and see what all of this looks like then? Yes, of course we should. We begin on Tranby Ride, right next to this big tower. This is a water tower which was built in the late 19th century. The tower provided water, not to Hull, but to a mansion called Tranby Crofts. It's no longer in use, but it's still a major local landmark. The mansion is now part of the private Tranby School, formerly known as Hull Collegiate School, which was established in 2005. The tower stands next to Tranby Crofts' former stable block, which now contains several small business units. My original plan was to walk through the school, but despite there being a path to a neighbouring street, it's private property. Instead, I had to walk down Tranby Lane, which is lined with some big grand houses, not too dissimilar to those in North Ferriby. This road continues to the east until it hits the edge of the village centre at a roundabout where it meets the B1232 Beverley Road. Here's what Tranby Crofts looks like in pictorial form. In Victorian times, the shipbuilder Arthur Wilson lived in this mansion. Tranby Crofts infamously was the scene of the royal baccarat gambling scandal, which involved the future King Edward VII. So once again, the fact that this part of Hull has got some big, massive houses should come as no surprise. We know from previous episodes, don't we, like North Ferriby and Swanland and Kirk Ella, that this western side of Hull was where all the wealthy ship merchants moved to. Let's carry on up Tranby Lane and head towards the village centre. Now we've made it to Beverley Road, and check out this old road sign. There's not many of these left in the country, let me tell you. With Tranby behind us, it's time to have a look at another big mansion, one which this time we can actually see, Anlaby House. Anlaby House is slightly older than Tranby. It was built in 1790 and later extended. It's now a block of luxury apartments. The house commanded a set of outbuildings, including a stable block and a courtyard, which are also residential these days too. It was all built for the wealthy Hull merchant John Boyes, but he sold it in 1818 to a man by the name of William Vose. The Vose family occupied the estate until 1936. During World War II, it was used as a store and a depot for air raid precautions. Vose left the house to his niece and her husband, Thomas Ringrose. The Ringrose and Vose names are still referenced in Anlaby's street names. This is Mary's Walk, which links the square to Vose's Lane, although precisely who Mary was is a bit of a local mystery. Off Vose's Lane is Beech Lawn. This is a dead end, but there's a short footpath at the end of this road which runs to a track. And that track's name? Ringrose Lane. At the end of this, we're into Anlaby's tightly compacted village centre. Okay then, here we are in Anlaby's village centre. Quite small considering the size of this place in total, but then again, it was always a small village before all that 1930s, 1940s, 1950s expansion. And this is the modern middle. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go up here and turn back on myself at the top just up there, because the main centre is all around this square, and then we're heading down this road here, which is a continuation of the centre, which will take us out towards a primary school. Anlaby's village centre is all based around a square containing the shortest stretch of dual carriageway in the East Riding. One business that you'll find here is Santi's, which is a southern Italian bar and kitchen. This occupies the former Red Lion Inn. The Red Lion's history has not been forgotten despite its dramatic transformation. Still, outside you can see the pub's old sign. Red Lion Court, a small shopping centre, is directly opposite. Next to that is Anlaby Studios, which is a dance school. On the other side of the square is Azoro Living. That's the place with all the lights on. Well, they are lighting experts after all. Buses stop in the village centre. Anlaby is served by 6 in total, most of which go into Hull. You can also get to Beverley from here too. There's a parish notice board in the centre as well. Tick off Anlaby with Anlaby Common folks. There's 48 to go. Its backside forms an information board which delves deep into the histories of Anlaby and Tranby and the families who lived here. And next to that is a clock. This was installed by the parish council in 2014 and it's the most iconic village centre landmark. Okay, you'll have noticed it's starting to rain, so why not use one of these things as a handy little rain shelter? Haha! One of these phone boxes. This one still has a working phone in it as well. I'll show you. There you go. That's what the working phones look like these days. It's Hull, so it's obviously provided by KCOM, Kingston Communications. And basically, I'm just going to wait in here until this rain shower has passed over. I think it's literally just a shower. I don't think it's much more than that. Yeah. Best to stay dry in here and not wet outside, I suppose. One of Anlaby's most well-known businesses would be Fields, an award-winning butchers who were established in 1994. They're famous for many things, including haggis pies. They also own 2 units here. The other is a gin house. At 21 Hull Road, it's the modest-sized village hall. This is an old school and church hall which is used by a lot of local groups. The shops don't stop, by the way, they continue over the road. This row includes the village's post office and a pharmacy. At the end of the row is a Sainsbury's local. Keep in mind, as far as retail goes, Anlaby has a much larger area, which is yet to come. The village can also boast a garage or 2. This quick fit can be found at the edge of the central area before it becomes housing again. Hull Road for a good quarter of a mile then looks like this, ending at a roundabout where Anlaby becomes Anlaby Common. The only other notable landmark along here is Anlaby Primary School, which arose from the former Anlaby Junior and Anlaby Infant schools. Now eventually Hull Road leads to a roundabout, and that's where Anlaby becomes Anlaby Common, which is a separate area of Anlaby with Anlaby Common Parish. Let's head up into that and see what that's all about. Now we're entering Anlaby Common. This is a separate part of the parish and distinct from the ancient village of Anlaby. It features no less than 3 religious buildings. This structure, which looks like an air raid shelter, is the church hall for St Mark's. St Mark's Church works closely together with the other churches in the area under the imaginative name of Common Ground. Now another urban area, historically Anlaby Common was an area of agricultural land, hence the name Anlaby Common. It now includes several areas of housing and businesses which straddle the border between the East Riding and the city of Hull. Here's the second of the churches, this time Anlaby Park Methodist. This was built in the 1960s and replaced an older building. That older building is next door. Built of brick in 1914, this became a schoolroom. It's still used as a preschool today. And not far away there's a pub called the Anlaby Park, a popular community local which was refurbished in 2019. Now, as well as the pub being called Anlaby Park, there's also an Anlaby Park area of Hull, but that doesn't fall within Anlaby with Anlaby Common's boundaries. That's a bit more to the east, so we won't be covering that. That's part of Hull. We're going to turn around at this point and head back along this road for a short way, turning right up into this housing estate behind these shops, and then head back towards Anlaby again. In the 1850s, Anlaby Common was mainly farmland, but by the 1890s, terrace streets like this one had been built off the road to Anlaby. It's not that long ago there were only 2 properties in Anlaby Common, Spring Villa, built in 1840, and East Ella, built in 1842. East Ella is now the name given to a small suburb of Hull, and this area is a small part of it. This contains another school. That would be Acrehead School on Scarrington Crescent. Less than a century ago, the railway was the biggest landmark in this area. Just to the north of these now quiet residential streets, the Hull and Barnsley Railway ran into the city via Springhead Holt railway station. There was also a major locomotive works, Springhead Works they were called, which had sidings in the northeast of Anlaby Common. The railway is now long gone, but this little green space off Westborough Way still shows the signs of this area's once industrial past. The trees here mark the route of the former railway line. Springhead Holt Station was to the west of this area, close to Wolferton Road. So this area should be semi-familiar to you if you watched the Willerby and the Kirk Ella episodes, because we're now at the point where Anlaby, Willerby and Kirk Ella all sort of mix together. We're sort of in the border regions. We're going to head towards Kirk Ella here by going past this rugby club. There's a rugby club down there called Hullensians. Past this and back down towards Springfield Way. It wouldn't be Hull without a rugby club, would it? Hullengians, a rugby union club, were formerly known as the Old Grammarians. Incidentally, in case you were wondering, the term Hullengian is used to describe someone from the city. Now you know. Next to the rugby club is Anlaby Common's third church, that of Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints. This is the newest in the parish. Now we're heading along Springfield Way, a major road which bypasses Anlaby to the north. Off it, there's an industrial estate. This includes The Block, a purpose-built managed office centre which has 34 different size units of up to 1,300 square feet. The industrial estate then becomes Anlaby Retail Park, the largest commercially used plot of land in the entire parish. A brand new shopping development, this opened in 2010, replacing an area of late 20th century light industry. Anlaby Retail Park has several household names like Marks & Spencer, Pets at Home, Costa Coffee, Next, Argos and Asda Living. The park is directly east of this large Morrison's supermarket which was built in 1993 before being rebuilt and expanded in 2003. There's a second industrial area over the road, albeit a much smaller one. Fraser's Vehicle Accident Repair Centre can be found here. They were established in 1980 and ever since they've been mending people's cars, earning them a fabulous reputation locally. And here's another part which may be familiar to you, that's Wolferton Road over the way there, and in the very, very far distance you might just be able to see a white building. That's a pub which we covered in the Willerby episode. If you go down that way, that takes you towards Willerby. Kirk Ella is that way. Also this way is where we're headed. We're going to take a turn off to the left here, which will take us back into Anlaby village centre towards the church. Now back into Anlaby, we're on North Street here. This will take us towards Anlaby's Anglican Church, St Peter's. On the way we pass an old Wesleyan Methodist chapel. This closed in 1884 and in the 1990s it was in use by the local Scouts. St Peter's Church then appears at the end of Church Street. I thought this to be a modest building as churches go. It's also pretty modern. It was originally built in 1865 to a design by William Kirby, costing just over £1,500. However, it had to be destroyed in 1883 owing to the roof being too heavy for the main structure. It was rebuilt by 1885. It's built mostly of brick in the decorated style and works in partnership with St Mark's Church at Anlaby Common. In its grounds is the War Memorial, a tall cross on a plinth. This one has 79 names, 31 from World War I, 48 from World War II. The Wilsons of Tranby Crofts often worshipped here. Their name lives on thanks to Wilson Street, upon which this church can be found. Well, I can tell you why the church was open, because as I walked out of the gates there was a sign that said funeral at 12 o'clock, so that's why the church is in use. Good job I hadn't got there half an hour later, because otherwise I would have been in the thick of it, so expert timing. Our last section sees us back on Springfield Way, albeit a lot further to the west. Here we're about to encounter Anlaby's recreational area. This includes Anlaby Park, not to be confused with the area of Hull we were talking about earlier. This is a playground. It stands next to the library and the leisure centre. This was built in 1974 and it's the busiest of its kind in East Yorkshire. It was officially opened by Roger Bannister, the first athlete to run a 4-minute mile. Over 1 million people visit this centre every year. Now we're coming into an area which you should recognise from previous episodes. This roundabout is on the Kirk Ella boundary. You may remember this church from that episode, which has been empty since June 2021. This is still within Anlaby. So too is this row of shops which stands opposite the Beech Tree pub. Our last task is to head back towards Tranby Crofts. To do that, we're using a combination of Broadley Avenue, Woodland Drive and Croft View, modern suburban housing at its finest. One notable resident of this estate is the East Yorkshire painter Stephanie Hatley, a well-known name to many in North Ferriby. That's down to her residences at the old railway station's ticket office. I've linked her Facebook page below. So the original plan was to walk all the way down Woodland Drive to get to the very far end, back to where I started, but I've opted to nip down Croft View instead. To be fair, they all look the same, these streets out here, and they're all wholly residential, so there isn't going to be much sort of to be gained by going the entire way down Woodland. So this was the best option, the easier option on my legs anyway. So yeah, this takes us back to Tranby Lane, which is there in front of us. Right turn at the end, back towards the tower where I parked, and that has taken me just over 2 hours to get around Anlaby. Apart from the rain shower, it's been quite a nice day, and I've thoroughly enjoyed my walk around this place. Very interesting part of Hull is the western side, and we've now virtually completed it with a couple of exceptions, but they'll be coming soon. To the south of the village is an area full of care centres and medical buildings. This is St Mary's Care Centre off Beverley Road. On the other side of a bank of trees is St Mary's Lodge. Working together, these two care homes are designed for those living with dementia, enabling them to live an active and fulfilled life. The facilities at St Mary's Lodge allow residents to enjoy everyday routines that keep them independent. Directly opposite these buildings, off Lowfield Road, is a private GP surgery, Spire, and the Willerby and Swanland surgery. The whole complex lies within Anlaby Woods, an ancient area of woodland which has been under threat from a developer in recent years. It's full of ancient trees, bats and birds, but from what I can tell, it's off limits to the public. At present, there's a campaign running to save Anlaby Woods, which I've linked below. Time to move on. I'll see you all later, elsewhere in the East Riding of Yorkshire. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.